Hello, welcome to another episode of the GNPS. It's your boy, General Ginela. As always, I'm out here with another dope guest. I'm not going to do too many intros. You'll find out who she is. Slee, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, last time I saw you was in high school.
Yes, when you were a celebrity. Yeah. Yeah, you're the famous cool kid. Yes, I remember.
If I was the famous cool kid, my subscriptions should show. But like,
well, maybe people are shocked, but like you were like under G.
Come
you were
on.
like, everyone knew.
You know, we've been having an argument about me being popular in high school, which I categorically disagree.
Well, we have different opinions. What I was seeing as a person who wasn't famous was a famous person.
Come on,
So.
what was I famous for?
Sports.
Put out facts.
Sports. Your friends. You guys were very rowdy, and your business.
Rowdy.
Yes. You guys. We knew when you. Yeah, anyway, and other things. You had turn-up friends who just...
I never turned up. I never went to any turn-up, though.
Until?
No, until matric.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the only turn-up I ever went to.
Was it only just one?
And I felt like it was compulsory rather than an
Because
option.
of your friends. But at the end of the day, the whole idea is you were well-known. Am I lying?
Nah.
We can run like a little poll thing and then people can...
Okay, whenever people watch this, if you went to SRL Cilliers
Yes.
High School, between 2000 and... Okay, just say, if you were at SRL Cilliers in 2007,
Right.
was I popular? Yes or no? Just drop a yes in the comments.
Or no?
Or no, which is the fact.
No.
I was not.
You absolutely were. But okay.
But moving right along, it's not about me. It's
Yes.
about you.
Awesome.
Like I said, last time I saw you was in high school. Other than that, I've seen you through social media.
Yes.
What have you been up to? Okay, before, I know you. So for me, here it's a platform for people to get to know you.
Cool.
So maybe if you can start from the very beginning. Where is Slee from?
Oh, cool.
Where were you born? And what was happening when you were growing up?
So I'm from Mpangeni, a little township called Kwadlangezwa. I went to word school, Cilliers. As you know, that's where we went to school. And then studied at DUT. And then got into community development after that. And I've been there for the past 10 years. So that's what I do and that's what I'm passionate about.
You said you studied?
I studied public relations.
Public relations.
But I don't practice.
Why not?
Because my passion is more community development and curriculum development, which is what I do now.
Okay. Why specifically community development?
So we had to do, what did we have to do at school? We had to do like an in-serve thing. Then I started working at the Cancer Association of South Africa. That's when I kind of realized, no, I actually love doing this. Sharing information with people, specifically Black people. So that's what I was doing. I was first an intern, and then I got a job as a community mobilizer manager, and basically had to go around doing presentations, teaching people about different kinds of cancers. And then after that, I was like, flip, let me go and study something that's aligned with, sharing information with people who look like me. And that's when it started. And then from then, I've just been working either in NGOs or doing work that's related to serving.
Are you at liberty to mention any of the NGOs that you're working on?
Yes, I can mention the NGOs that I've worked with. I've worked with, so I've already mentioned cancer. I've worked with Ithemba Lethu.
What do they do?
So they work with kids as well. So it's more leadership development stuff. I've worked with Ivulisisi Ndlela. Again, Durban-based NGO, and they also do work, which is community development, under-resourced community, youth development programs. And I write content, and then I train on that content.
No, okay. That sounds interesting.
I love what I do, man.
So how does it work? So on a daily basis, you work Monday to Friday. Do you have working hours or?
So I started a business last year. Well, we started, a group of us started a business, and I left to be my own consultant. So now I practice as a consultant, and so now I don't have normal working hours. I work when I have schools. Currently working with Durban Girls College and St. Mary's.
Okay, so when you're saying you're working as a consultant, so you mean NGOs will approach you
Yeah.
to consult for them?
Yeah. So my work is quite strange because one, there's that one part which is NGO spaces and the training of kids there. But what brings me money is working at schools. So I've written a curriculum which is equivalent to a LO, the LO curriculum.
Wait, you've written a whole curriculum?
Yeah, so I train on that. So that's how I get businesses at school.
Wait, that's mind blowing.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who does that.
There's so many people, actually. You'd be so surprised.
So wait, you are able to, and I just want to understand it.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
from a layman's from a layman's point of view.
Yeah.
So if I were to say I've got a certain subject
Yeah.
which I would like to make it in the form of a curriculum,
Right.
so to say. So I would need someone with your specialties.
Yeah, so that's what the last company that I worked with, they were running a gap year program. They needed a life skills program, and that's what I wrote for them, specifically around equipping kids from under-resourced communities who can't afford to go to university. So you upskill them.
No, it's fine, don't worry.
You upskill them so that they either get a job or go to university. So that's what I would write. And then in schools, something that says equivalent to LO, that's what I would write. So whatever topics they have there, I would just write them in a more meatier, for lack of a better term. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the reason I say that's interesting is because, if you look at our education, our education system, it's not the best
Yeah.
to start off with, and not only that, it's we shouldn't just sit and complain and be like, yo, the education system is effed up and all those kind of things. I feel like there's an opportunity for us to fill in a gap. When I say us, I mean anyone in the community who has the means and the time and sees the necessity to do such thing.
Yeah.
So, like simple life skills or way to approach life, I feel like that was never taught to us.
Yeah.
I had there's a girl I had on the podcast on episode 21. Check out Unolikwa. But I think she goes by Jade. She said we lack the knowledge to understand emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that now that I think that's what she said.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not quoting it correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's true though. It is really that. And it's something that should be included in the curriculum, and it's something that should be taught because it's something that people don't value. So a lot of the time people want skills that you can see, but people don't know how to navigate everyday pressures. That's why we're the way that we are, because we're not skilling people in all areas of their lives. And a huge part of that is emotional intelligence, how you treat people, how you communicate, how reading the room. There are people when they walk into a room and they'll say something that's so absurd, and you're like, if that person could read the room, dude, they would know that you can't say that. Or just not knowing when to speak. And emotional intelligence is so much more than that. It's your ability to handle yourself, understand your own emotions, how you feel. Because if you're very much aware of how you feel, you're able to communicate that. So our LO curriculum, I find, it's just not relevant. It's teaching things. There are certain things there that are very relevant, but I also feel like you leave high school and you're like, dude, I was never prepared for what varsity looks like. Yeah. If I'm faced with certain pressures, how do I respond? Things like peer pressure, how do I face those? So that's what I found quite interesting about writing, is that it's an opportunity to, as an experienced almost 30-year-old, to be able to tell a story of what I learned and what I didn't have, and then provide that.
Okay. And what inspired you to embark on this journey? to see the need to teach and share knowledge?
My parents. I think I've seen my mom. My mom's a teacher, and my dad was also a teacher, but he's retired now. But I've seen how they were. So we grew up with my parents just loving all kids. So we had a lot of siblings that were not really our siblings. So I've seen my mom's love for educating and what education does and what information does. And so that's why I fell in love with it. It wasn't something that they specifically said you need to do this, but it's the way that they led their lives that inspired me to do that for other people. So that's how, my family's just book loving, people serving family, and that's where I got it from.
So, sorry. So the love for reading and writing comes from the house.
Yeah.
See, those are qualities that I feel like they need to be taught or shared with a lot of people out there, because of our state of the education system in our country. Especially if you look at it within our community. Even myself, since school, primary school, well, not primary. Lucky enough, in primary I had an interest to read.
Oh, wow.
So I did read. Purely nakona because my mother really rubber stamped that.
That's nice.
Yeah, even gone as far as beating me up.
Beat the child to read.
Yeah, it's like, you gotta read, nigga, you gotta read.
What made you stop?
So, like I said, you're a child.
Yeah.
You're being forced to do. I felt like I was being forced to do something. And so I never really had the interest around reading. And throughout high school, even book reports. I'm sorry, but before I compromise myself, there are a few book reports that I wrote where the books never really existed.
Are you serious?
Hypothetically speaking.
So you made up that whole crap and you're just like, I'm too lazy to even care.
Hypothetically, yes, I did.
That's so good. I don't blame you though.
I used to make up my own stories.
Yeah.
That's
creative though.
Yeah, but I only realized that now.
Sure.
But back then it was purely out of laziness. And now that could have gone any other way. But looking back now, I regret that, I've missed out on so many years of reading, because now I understand that reading is one of the most convenient or most useful ways of consuming information.
Right.
And we live in a time where if you're the least informed person in the room,
nobody got time for you.
Wow.
Nobody has time
Good
for
luck.
You. I read this. I don't know if it was a quote by some person. I'm assuming it was a non-black person, but Bapa Luguti, if you wanna hide anything from a black person, put it in a book.
Yeah.
For me, that's what made me no. No. It was deeply problematic and probably traumatic for me because I was like, we also got to look at how our lives were, and reading has never really been our thing because our lives weren't centered around the luxury of time. So when you read, right? And it's also exposure.
No, you never have time for anything like clubbing.
Yeah.
You make time.
But also you must think, Uti, for us, when you look at the history of our country, you can you imagine Uti in between the lives that we were living at the time being eco-leoned? And also our parents, they were away half the time because they had to go and work. Child-headed homes. There's just so many dynamics. But when you fast forward to now, and why I think reading is important is, for me, for the longest time, I could only imagine what Paris was like through books. And then I finally went to Paris. My imagination had already created that world, and it was so beautiful to get to a place where I've read about and I knew about it. And that was really life-altering for me. But what books do is you can find something that's interesting for you, and then that you fall in love with doing. It's just the level of information that you can get. And it's such a great alternative to all the other things that exist in our lives. So back in the day, there was no representation. Black people weren't really known for that. Now we have the luxury of sharing that and also exposing it to black communities. Ukufunda is not a white thing. ukufunda is not an intellectual thing. Ukufunda is you can find a book on sports if you're a sports fanatic.
Yes.
And then you read about that.
You know, I always like tell people like, you know, how I got interested in reading.
Yeah.
Or purely just informing myself, because now reading is not the only form of or tool to inform yourself.
Right.
There's podcasts, there's
Yeah.
audiobooks. You know, you can't say you
It's an
don't have
excuse.
time. You're not a reader, and you're also
Right.
not a listener.
That's so true. That's so true.
That's a bad thing to say about yourself.
Yeah.
So now I feel like that we have those options.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now we don't realize that, you know, even with smartphones, when you're on Instagram,
Right.
there is useful content, which is valuable information
Right.
that people can use to better their lives or improve their lives, so to say.
So essentially, like reading is convenient. It's
Yes,
convenient.
it's
now.
much more convenient now.
Yeah.
But you still within our side of the community is like informing ourselves is very slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not picking up any pace.
But what do we do? Like, what does it look like? I know that we tried something. So I worked for this organization once, Slindile, and the one thing that I came up with was, in order for them to love reading, I'm going to give them an incentive.
Yeah.
So I was like, if you read one chapter this week, write a review, a book review, and then come back and tell me what that chapter was about, and then I'll give you something.
Yeah.
So that got them wanting to read. But the hope was that they would start developing their own sense of desire to read. But language normally is just like, I don't have time, right? Or just like, who reads? Like, why are you being umlung? Like, gashlessly, you know? And people don't understand that it's so much more than just this thing ukba bougie. It's not that. It really is about shaping your mind, your imagination, and getting you out of where you are. And for you to dream bigger. How are you going to even imagine your life outside of the circumstances that you're in if there's nothing that's influencing you? So yeah, there's power in reading.
You know, I had a guest on the podcast, Kevin.
Shout out
his
Kevin.
episode is out. You can find it here, right here. He asked us question that with the Nguni languages,
Yeah.
what are we doing to advance the language? Where's the literature
Yeah.
in our language?
Yeah.
Documenting stories.
We
And
need
information.
to do that. We need to do that.
Valuable information.
Yeah.
You know, with our cultures, you know, there's so many ways and people do things differently.
Right.
I'm speaking predominantly Zulu culture
Right.
because that's my culture. Even like on things like ukwenza sevens, you know, there are people interested in doing that, but like there's no there are no guidelines that have been documented,
You're right.
you know, to actually pass, and not just any guidelines, but like correct guidelines. Because like you find that you do something and then suddenly later down the line it's like, yo, no, you did it wrong. And now you've caused another mess. And, you know, that's why people cannot hold on to these things, because the laws change rapidly.
Yeah.
There's no
Content.
structure. There's no content.
Yeah, there isn't. But I mean, you can even look at it from the current issues that we have around mental health or mental illness. If you are a black person struggling with that, because that's not a language, right? For those things. But some and the reason why we do that is because mental health in Zulu.
Yes.
So we need people to start writing. We need, and all of us have stories. All of us have stories that we need to share. I recently met a guy at Starbucks.
Shout out to Starbucks.
No.
Okay. Yeah, Starbucks. We out here. You know what it is.
Do the things.
We love coffee on this podcast.
And so I met
Anyways.
this guy, and so I've always wanted to write. In fact, I've written something, but I'm just very insecure about sharing it because it's quite personal. And he just said to me, "Usanda kubhala incwadi," and he self-published at Pine Town, and it just made it seem like a very minor thing. Like,
Yeah.
no, ngibhalile. It's like a 120-page book. And he had the book there, and he was selling it to me, and I'm like, "It's time, ubalebi."
What's his name?
Nkosinathi Dlamini or something.
Yeah, I know him. I have his book. I actually met him at Devonport.
Oh, fire to this dude. He's
Yeah.
like busy doing things. So I was so impressed because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, publisher, how do I? But at the core of my heart is when somebody's reading, I want them to read their own story, a story that they can relate to as a black child in your own language. And what does that look like? And so for me, that's my idea around reading. Ukuthi let's not make it just ukuthi ufunde isingisi. Yes, it's funde, but nathi mina in particular, isiZulu sami is terrible.
Yeah.
And ngumzulu. Khona ezinye izinto ezingixakayo, and you're just like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And before it's like, whoa, bougie. It's not bougie anymore to not know izinto zagini.
Yeah.
So it'd be beautiful for somebody to write.
I feel like it's time that, I always say like we don't live in the same times as back then.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say with that is that our roots, our culture, they don't belong just in that time.
Absolutely.
They also belong in this time. Just like we've evolved, our lives have evolved. That means also our culture needs to evolve
Right.
with the times. And so has every other culture.
Yeah.
Back then there were no phones. It would have been easy to say, yo, back then, if ungakalanga, you're not allowed to use a phone.
Yeah.
It could have been easy to do that.
Yeah.
But no, it hasn't, because the phone, we understand, is a necessity of today.
Yeah.
And it helps make our life
Easier.
efficiently. So it just now means that we need to find a way to utilize it in a way that it progresses our culture and who we are.
But what does that look like? People writing.
Writing.
But what would they write on? What our culture was before and what it is now and what it means to be umzulu?
First of all, it starts with sharing stories.
Yeah.
In stories, if all individual, I always say this, everyone has an interesting story.
Yeah.
You just need someone who's interested to hear your story.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everyone is boring. Only
Yeah.
celebs are interesting.
No.
So for me, it's different. And that's why we don't have, that's like, it's one of our Achilles heels, if I can put it like that. Even when it comes to black success, it reaches a ceiling because we don't want to work together.
But can we just sit on that for a moment?
Yeah.
I don't understand the concept of black hate. Like, one, I can understand what's problematic about us is the fact that we are very much aware of the fact that with opportunities.
Yeah.
But we're also not in the forefront of changing that narrative. I've seen living in both contexts where my community is predominantly white people. I've seen them work things out for people to get jobs.
Yeah.
Into yamanje, into ezoyenzeka manje, unawumsebenzi, hlangana. Ngizohlala nawe mina. Wazi kahle ukuthi anginawo wazi kahle ukuthi khona emsebenzini into ephumile. You'll never consider me.
Yeah.
Knowing very well that you can and you have the ability to. But like, why?
Yeah. It's like this, like, when it comes to success, black people, you only wish it for yourself. And then everyone else must look at you and be like, yo, look at this guy. We enjoy that more than, being like, yo, okay, I have this much. Let me try and get more people to have as much as I do.
Right.
That's the only thing that all the races, cultures, religions beat us on. Tina, it's always competition. Like, I'm doing a podcast, someone's gonna say, yo, this guy's trying to copy me.
Right.
Or, yo, this guy's trying to copy so and so. Or I'm gonna copy that guy. Why do we have to have a negative thinking towards everything. Like our
Yeah.
pattern is negative. Our pattern of thinking is negative.
It's true.
Like, why can't I be like, oh, this guy's doing a podcast? That's interesting.
You're right.
Okay, I would also like to do a podcast.
And that
Let me
shouldn't be
try
a
and work with
problem.
him.
Exactly.
You know, and it same thing goes for me. I need to open a door for people that want to work with me. I shouldn't
Right.
be like, yo,
I
these
started
people
this.
are coming in here to take my shit. You know? So
Yeah.
it's all that kind of thinking that we have. Or someone coming in with the mentality to be like, yo, I'm going to snatch that shit.
Yeah. But I do think that this works, like being able to talk about these things and putting them out there. This is pretty much like reading, except you're just like listening and watching people talk about the realities of the world. If people are very much aware of the fact that it's a reality. Black people, we're holding ourselves back because we are naturally a gifted people. A lot of things is because we have not been exposed to, right? But when we do get exposed to sports, to opportunities, we flourish because we're naturally gifted people. What tends to hinder us is the fact that my success, I don't view it as everybody else's success who looks like me. And when I'm at the top, let me grab somebody else who's going to grab somebody else. And naturally that becomes a thing.
And not only just grab someone else, but teach someone else that whoever you're grabbing,
Yeah.
that, yo, since I'm grabbing you, you
You
better
have
grab
to.
somebody
You
else
have
or
to.
2 other people, 3 other people, and all those kind of things.
Yeah, no. It's,
And it's a culture that we need to harness
yeah.
amongst us as black people. Like, your success shouldn't be the absence of my success.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Hmm.
But where do we start?
For me, I think it's one, having these conversations. One, that's probably the most. Sharing information. I'm so big on sharing information. Like, put the thing out there, put a collective of people who have the capacity to exemplify what that conversation looks like, and start. It's very difficult though, because abantu are still, for them, an idea of success is be successful. I need to drive back elokishini with my expensive car. Ngistantele umuntu ongeke azayo vele lapha. Into engahlangene. It's like, dude, this guy will never be where you are because akanawo amathuba.
And those are heroes, people that
But bafuna lokho
that
nabo nje.
stand in front of other people with their success. I'm not saying standing is wrong, but all I'm saying is, think, like, you know, when you're a successful person, you play a very important role, whether you understand that or you don't.
Yeah.
But if you are at a position where you feel like you've made or attained some sort of level of success,
Yeah.
you need to start being a critical thinker. If you are perfect, use it.
Yeah.
It's very important because all your actions are very vital.
Yeah.
And the way that you think is important. And I feel like that us as the black community, we need to understand that more and more, and get rid of this thing of
Trying to be the top dog.
exactly
And showing
competition.
Yeah.
Why we gotta, like, I always tell people, if you wanna compete, go to sports.
You're right. But also, there's nothing wrong with wanting or desiring to be the best, right? There's do that. I just have a problem maumuntu enga identify responsibility, and I think it's every black person with an opportunity or who has had access to something bigger than them. If you are not aware of your surroundings, if you don't understand the black narrative and you don't understand the social responsibility to take someone else and change someone else's life so that that thing can also happen to them and then they can go back to their community and make a bigger change. That's where I have a problem with. You desiring the highest salary, you wanting to say, I'm the best in this motherfucking thing, do your thing. But do not remove yourself so much from the needs of black people. And it's not this thing, and it tends to be difficult because in the entitlement, no.
Reparation.
No. Angidingile ukwenza lokho, ngiyafuna because I see a much bigger story. So for me, it's really that's my only issue with black people. Ukungichomela kwakho namajazi akho lokho, but like
You know, there's this thing going around on social media, where people are like, you know, black people. Let me be specific.
yeah.
Black people, on Twitter, they're gonna be like, "Yo, Siyakolisi is Xhosa,
Oh,
and he lifted the World Cup trophy, and Uzozi is Xhosa." Like, do you understand? That's why black people. That's why the narrative for black person is the way it is. It is because of such thinking. The thought of thinking that because you identify with that tribe, that's how we've been conquered, so to say. If I can let you know, and I'm spitting facts right now. I don't care what you think. That's how we've been conquered. It's because with everything that happens amongst us black people, it always boils down to tribalism.
That's true.
And there's no need for that, because we're working against ourselves. For me, when Usia Kolisi was lifting the World Cup trophy, that was a black moment, a pure black moment. It's something I can identify with, because his upbringing as a typical South African upbringing of a black person comes from a very impoverished background and made it all the way to the world's biggest stage. There's something to aspire to as a black kid. I don't need to be Xhosa.
Absolutely.
I don't need to be Xhosa in order for me to feel inspired by Usia Kolisi. I don't need to be Xhosa to celebrate Usia Kolisi or Uzozi. It shouldn't be about that amongst black people. Anything that's black and is South African, it doesn't matter whether Xhosa, Venda, Tswana, Zulu. It doesn't matter. We should celebrate it. That's something for all of us. There's no need to break it down. It's not sports. That's why, like, this competition that we have amongst ourselves, it needs to end. Because if we don't wake up and see that we're being played against each other, and that's how we're being segregated. That's why we can't work together. So for me, if we want to work together, we need to start there.
Sure. That's
fine.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong about people being proud of their culture, of their background. I'm all for that.
But don't use that as
But there is no culture or background or tribe that supersedes any tribe.
Right.
Because each tribe has its own successes and its own downfalls and its own failures. So there's no time to sit and point fingers and be like, yo, I'm this, I'm that. That's not going to help anyone. Right now, we need a united front. So it starts there. We need to cut all those things. If you are black and you're South African, that's what we want.
But do you not think, Uguti, maybe if we, maybe to just go back again to the power of like education and information, I've seen the power of facilitating a conversation in a school setting. And I've seen kids almost like when you're sharing something, it's sitting, them processing, and then they figuring it out themselves. Do you not think, Uguti, there's a lot more power in that space? Ngiyababona badala like our age or whatever, but do you not think if we were to actually instill some of those values, like the love for each other across all cultures and across all races, that it would come from spaces like that education has the power of facilitating quality people in South Africa, people who are shaped better than what we were. Because we whether we're aware of it or not, we still hold a lot of things. And we go into a lot of settings with a whole lot of feelings about particular races, about particular cultural groups or whatever. But if you are able to cultivate an education system that makes people work together, by the time you go to university, it's something that was processed and something that was instilled in you throughout your education. So that's my question. Do you not think that?
For me, I absolutely agree.
Right.
And if I can highlight, all those kind of things or setups, if we were to have them, it'll definitely improve the quality of people that are present within our community. Because, like, even right now, you go around our communities, people that seek to be heroes or people that people should look up to, they're going about it the wrong way. Everyone thinks that in order for you to be cherished and loved, you gotta have money, or you gotta throw money at everything, you know, and this need of being appreciated or being feared, of having power over people, is also another problem that's hindering us from being a well-educated community.
That's so true.
And even you look at also our platforms where we get our content that we consume. You cannot run away from that.
Yeah.
If you look at mainstream media, which is traditional TV and radio, what's there? You know, what's there that's there on primetime radio that's going to empower
We need to change that.
a young Slindile or Sempangin.
That's true. But we need to change that. And I think this is what these platforms are doing. This is what your social media does. It's an opportunity to offer an alternative, because it's almost like a inspiration for everyone who goes on social media is to have a social media lifestyle, and go to Dubai and God knows do what in Dubai that we don't see. And it's fine. People must do what they want. But I think we really have to offer young people an alternative, good quality. And for them to also know, people don't know enough, Uguti, whether you have money or not, you're worthy of being loved. Whether you have things that the world, because that's also another problematic thing that leads people into being depressed. Not often, and I don't want to belittle the idea of depression, but feeling unworthy is because we're ticking boxes that other people created to value or place ourselves as people who are valuable. So when people start understanding, regardless of what I have and not, one, I'm worthy of being loved. It doesn't matter where I come from. My story can turn into anything. People don't hear enough of that. They're just seeing abantu being celebrities and by celebrity. So we need
see
people,
the final product.
Exactly. And those people aren't doing the right thing because they're not sharing the real thing. And so, and I do think though that we are becoming more real people. We do want to hear the hard things. We do want to hear the things that, shake us and form our inner man. And you want to hear stories about people who are doing real things and changing communities. So I do think that it plays a major role. Like, these platforms, you cannot downplay, because somebody's going to randomly bump into this and be like, flip.
There's so much content here.
What the heck are these people talking about, man? Changing my life and shit. I wanted to be a slave queen now. Gotta go get educated and shit.
Speaking about platforms, these platforms, like, with the resurgent of the internet as a platform. Obviously to either communicate or build something. I'm focused on both sides, but the most important side is for us being able to build things. Online, you are able to create an opportunity for yourself. Right now, you cannot sit around and say, I'm going to wait for a job.
Absolutely.
It's not the right mentality. And everyone has a phone, has a smartphone. So just go online. If you go on YouTube, you don't even need to go to Google now. I always tell, I know most people, like I said, I understand people that don't want to read. So I wouldn't refer you to Google, because Google is going to first give you an option to read before it gives you visual. So it's straight up, just go to YouTube. You got a question, go to YouTube. Somebody out there has posted a video about whatever subject matter that you have. Or someone is trying to create content out of the subject matter that you have. If there is no content about your question, hello.
Opportunity.
Yeah, bro.
That's so good. Opportunity. That's so true, yeah.
Yes. And people are not thinking like that. And we're making this. This is available.
Yeah.
Someone has a question, but they're asking it at the wrong place. But because they so selective of the content, they'd rather see something else than something closer to them, which is real. Then that's how you miss opportunities.
Sure.
Right now, so there's that opportunity for someone to grab a piece of the pie or create an opportunity that they could never have or dream of in their whole entire life. Even I myself, I never dreamt I could be on a podcast.
Do this.
Sure. I never.
That's so possible. You have to just go beyond your comfort.
Back in high school, I didn't sit and be like, yo, one day I want to have a TV show.
You were busy being a celebrity.
I know. Come on,
heavy work. Heavy work being a celebrity, General.
I wasn't a celebrity. But I was, what? I'll tell you one thing I was popular for. Yeah.
Did he just admit that he was popular?
For something.
No. But I mean the important part to remember here, the operative word.
Actually, I before I like to apologize to Nadia.
Oh
my God! Till this day, I feel bad. I feel bad.
What did you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Nadia.
Okay. Nadia, I apologize.
Oh,
I know
wow.
it could be too late.
Could never be.
But I apologize.
Fire.
I still feel bad about that.
For things you did when you were famous?
No. I wasn't famous.
Okay.
Let me not say we.
Mm-hmm.
I laughed at her.
Why?
In front of the whole school. And like, well, not the whole school, so to say, but like there was a crowd.
And you were part of
laughing at her because I was laughing at her.
Oh, wow. So you were
because
leading.
of her hairstyle she chose.
Oh, I remember that day. I actually remember.
And I actually made it a day special. Like, she had to go hide from me.
You use so much filth.
Yeah.
Are you apologizing sincerely?
I sincerely apologize.
Shame, Nadia, I can see his eyes.
Honestly, I apologize. I'm so sorry.
No, you guys were evil.
But I was a kid, man.
That's true.
I was 17 when I was in matric.
Definitely
kids do fucked up things.
It's cool. She forgives you.
So that's why, I wasn't popular, because if I was popular, it's because people hated me. But I got a fair share of it for my own, on myself.
Did you?
Yeah, there were 2 times where people laughed at me.
Yeah, but you were so much louder. You were hectically louder that even if people were laughing at you, you found a way of making it them who are problematic and not really you. So please, what you did to people, Nadia, he apologizes.
But I'm not that person. If anyone else, I've done something bad to you, just I'm so sorry.
I can't believe I'm provoking this sensitive part of you and wanting to apologize.
Yeah, I'm someone who believes that, if you've wronged people, whether now or whether it happened yesterday or 10 years back, if there's an opportunity to, make even if the person was like, I don't care. If it touches you and you deep down, I
need to
bad.
do better.
Yeah, then
do it.
You should apologize.
That's good.
So, it's just one thing. So the one thing I don't like is having somebody have negative thoughts about
you.
Yeah, because of something that I did. You can have negative thoughts about me.
That's fine, but not influenced by how I treated you.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I have another question for you.
Yes.
Do you think that we are doing enough? Do you think we're doing enough to go back to... I'm going back to Black communities now. Do you think that we do enough to go back and represent opportunity? So by represent opportunity, I mean not to be the typical, you come out of election and school and you become a teacher, you become all those things. There's now new tech. There's this for a living. There's being a YouTube person. Do you think we do enough to represent all of those?
No, I was about to say that. Which brings me back to writing, right? People don't know how much writers make. And do you know, in order to be a writer, you don't have to go to school.
Right.
You don't have to go to school to be a writer.
And you can pay
You
editors.
just one, you need to know how to write, or you can get somebody to write for you, as long as you have something to write on. Everyone can talk.
Yeah.
That's easy. So, and not only that, there's people like you who are teaching people to do such things.
Yeah.
And that's like one thing that we lack. Every now and again, we feel like you gotta wait until you're a celebrity in order for you to be documented. No.
There's story. I'm currently reading this amazing book. I forgot the author, but it's this guy who's married. Is a South African guy who grew up in Durban. I always love reading books about people who are from a little city that I'm from, or that I'm currently staying in. But I forgot his name now, but he was writing a biography about his life. And he was telling a story about how his relationship with his father impacted the way that he was towards women. And that was a black narrative. Like when you talk about, and you know, Tina, we can relate to each other's stories. In our tendencies, not so much the abusive side, but like all other things.
Yeah.
So he told that story, but out of that came this beautiful story of how he met his wife and how they got married and the man that he is now. And then he asks black men, he's like, tell your story. Don't wait and think that nobody is going to heal from it. And I document for my healing purpose. So it's not only just to write about the bad things, but write about your world. Like, what do you dream of? Like,
what do you see?
What do you see here? You know, and surely it doesn't have to be a story of Guti. His success is about leaving a Lokshin. Maybe success is here. What does it look like for you? And I think, do we do enough to go back and draw out of those people that are currently there so that they can dream, so that we can document their stories and share it with the world?
Yeah. You know, I always say that, you know, it's like, we want to wait for someone from outside to come here and tell our stories. Like, till this day, there is no, why is black history in South Africa only associated with apartheid in the Zulu kingdom?
Right.
Yet, it's evident that khona maXhosa, khona maVenda. Okay, we've got amasopi that, you know, but like there's real stories other than fictional stories that really happen, and that's concrete history. That's what makes up the country. That's what makes up the community. You know, like I was speaking earlier, documenting ways of performing our rituals.
I think that's beautiful.
In our language.
That would be so. I think that is probably the one thing I'm taking away from today. That we need to do more. Yeah.
So we're too lazy on that front, and I don't know. Hopefully, with this podcasting, hopefully it's gonna spark an interest in us doing that. Even, you know, don't fault me. There's nothing wrong with the way we understand media or what's it used for. Because, like, mostly I'll tell you, media, we understand that it's a tool to shine a spotlight on celebs.
Right.
That's what we know here.
Yeah.
We only know what on the paper, in the magazines, you should only read about popular people. But that's not how it is. Because you look outside of the world in other places, that's not how they're doing things.
Yeah.
There's a scope for everything. There's a market for everything. There's a need for all types of content.
Somebody better start a magazine about extraordinary stories and put out everyday people news.
But you know what? I'll tell you our problem is because everything, like, even with, we can talk about these things. We can share these ideas for people to go and do. But everyone is gonna say, okay, when is the money coming? And that's another thing that we don't understand, that in order for money to start coming in, there has to be a lot of work.
There has to be work. You don't just
and there's no timeline on that. It's not a process of saying, write a book and then it's gonna be a number one seller, bestseller.
That's true.
you know, or it's going to be in every book club. No. You could write 12 books,
And
and on your 12th, that's when you hit the nail.
Exactly.
And not only that, what then happens, it sparks an interest in all the other 11 that didn't do so well.
Exactly.
And like I said, we live in a time where there's many ways to consume information, such as audiobooks.
That's so true.
You know, the only thing you need to...
It's much easier to read.
It's much easier to read and write.
Yeah, and even get information. Again, for me though, reading, it has to come from a place of there's an interest. If you have an interest in traveling, there's so many books that are about traveling.
Yeah.
If you have an interest about injustice, like social justice, there's so many books and scopes around those things. It's just, again, representation, going back and saying, look, it's not just ukufunda is not just ukufunda esikoleni ngoba uzobhala test. You know, there's this thing. What are you interested in?
Yeah.
And then from that point, there's a wealth of knowledge and there's a wealth of information that you can tap into and read. And if you're lazy to read or don't want to actually read, fuck an earphone and listen to an audiobook. There's just so many ways to create this culture, and it keeps you educated. You're also able to have conversations with people beyond these
beyond other than talking about load shedding.
Oh my God.
Load shedding matters,
or the
but
weather.
we can't talk about it every day.
Every day, dude.
You know,
They're just amazing. And there's blogging.
yes.
So people can blog for free. You can go in WordPress and you can write your story. And like that's where you can practice how to be a better writer. There's just so many avenues that we are not exposed to that are available for us to actually develop our stories and even learn how to tell our stories. Because sometimes you know that you have a story, but awukwazi ukuthi uzoyiplace kanjani.
Can I tell you another way? You know, I watch and listen to a lot of podcasts. Okay, one that I listen to, one of many that I listen to frequently, is the Joe Rogan Experience.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, and on his latest episode, latest now, but doesn't matter. He had this guy who's a writer, goes by the name of S.C. Gwynne, Gwynne. Yeah. He wrote this book called The Empire of the Summer Moon. It's about the Comanches. Basically, these wild Indians that lived in America.
Yeah.
In the time of the Wild West.
Oh, wow.
So the reason I have an interest in that because I used to watch a lot of Western movies.
Yeah.
Like your Clint Eastwoods and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, but now this guy, he documented the way these guys lived and their way of approach to life and the things that went on in that time. And that said to me, you know, there's so many stories just like that that were happening on this side. One that comes to mind is, like all the wars that went on here.
Yeah.
Like, especially KZN. KwaZulu-Natal, because that's what I know. Impi yasesandlwane.
Yes.
You know, EP, okay. Ngizobuza kanje. Liphi side lethu le story sale yampi yasesandlwane. That's well documented.
Yeah.
And it's available in the library or online.
Sure.
You know, and that's I'm not being tribal. I believe there's a similar story eyenzeka eVenda.
Yeah.
You know, or it could have possibly happened Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
You know, Lesotho. Those kind of stories, they are there, they are present, and they carry so much value, you know, in us, helping us understand who we are, where we came from, and what we represent, which is another thing. I feel like, you know, that's why we don't aspire to greater things, you know, like, because we hate ourselves.
That's true.
You know, no one wants to identify as black. You know?
Yeah.
And so much has been taken away from us.
But
so
it was a strategic thing, really, from the get-go, for us to not love ourselves.
And like, you know, us not having the need to seek to find our way. I'm not saying let's go back and go do those things. But like, us knowing those things will go a long way in shaping us to be people that excel.
But do you not think...
life.
Sorry. Do you not think that we're far gone? Ngoba manje people are raising their kids basically white. They don't speak a word of Zulu. They, half the time you actually hear parents who think it's a beautiful thing to say, akasikhuluma Zulu.
It's tough. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with us, you know, eloquating in any other language other than our indigenous languages. Even I myself, I always say this, you know, to show you how far this, you know, how bad the damage is. I'm here sitting talking about this, like ngikhuluma ngesiZulu, but you see that, yeah.
You bet.
Like,
no, it's a real thing.
You know, kunzima. It's like, funny, you have to constantly be conscious and be like, yo, I'm trying.
Yeah.
But no, isiZulu samanje sinesingisi phakathi. And ayikho into engayenza, and everyone around me speaks like that.
Yeah.
Whether they speak fluent English or not so fluent English.
Right.
You know, we all have a sentence.
That's true.
And fine, there are still those of us who are pure, who still speak like, you know, or still are able to be conscious to switch between the two.
Yeah.
But but slowly, because they hang around people such as us, they're slowly being influenced. And so that's like a culture dying slowly. You know, one day, 100 years from now, you might wake up, you know. Even you look at the content, like, if I like, it's a beautiful story. The storyline is great. I love what they're doing. But like some of the acting, it's a misrepresentation
of our language.
Yes. Oof. It's a misrepresentation in the sense that that's not how they speak. That's not how they spoke then, at that time, where the story is set.
Sure.
So it kind of, you know, it doesn't hit home, because then everyone just becomes stuck on like, yo, that's not authentic.
Yeah.
You know, when content is authentic, it's...
But do we not adjust to the times? Like, I mean, even back in the day, we were quite known for storytelling, because Abazali would do that. Or Gogo would tell stories. You know, what? What? The Nganegwan. Kwasuka Sugela, or what else. So... even that's so problematic. But like, you know, our parents would tell stories, or Kokobets would tell stories. Those are the kind of things that I think younger people, I missed out on that. More generations are missing out on that. But I think that the price is, if there are people who are writing in our language, if there are people who are still intentionally trying to make sure that is Zulu. And I remember my dad would say, Wakoba, Shambele later in my life, but isingisi kwakho sasesikoleni mawubuye ekhaya khuluma isiZulu ngisele lokho esikoleni so mawubuya la ekhaya khuluma isiZulu, you know what I mean? And I found at the time I was like, hey kahle when I speak English. Later on though, I realized he was trying to still keep our culture and keep ubuZulu bethu, and I didn't appreciate that, and now I struggle through into ngabi basic. So I do think, again, writing is the price. It's the price. People have to write in our language. We have to intentionally buy books that will enhance that. It takes me 10 times longer to read a book Zulu than it does an English one, but I have to force myself into getting back into doing stuff like that.
Wow. We've run out of time.
Did we?
Yeah. But then that means we've left out some content for another episode.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
So thanks for coming, Slee, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
This is a moment where you give people your social media handles if they want to,
Follow me.
follow you and actually see more content of you. Because, that's why you're here. You're here because you're interesting.
That's
and
awesome.
You may live with an audience of
I'm joking. So on Instagram, or on Facebook, I'm Slindile Xhakaza. There's so many of us, but you'll see me. And then on Instagram, I am at Little Life _ Slicks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Little Life of Slicks. Thank you so much.
Wow.
I didn't get the hat.
No, the time is coming. Don't worry. Thank you to Slee for coming to the podcast. It's been real. Thanks to Tiny behind the camera. And as you can see, the venue is different. Shout out to my friend Umngobi who hooked us up and made sure this was possible. So this is courtesy Umngobi. This episode was proudly brought to you by Umngobi.
Yes, it was.
Mr. Men's Health Cover Guy.
Mr.
He's coming up on one of our episodes somewhere in time. But this episode is not about him. Thanks to Slee.
Thank you so much, man.
Man, it's been another dope-ass podcast episode. Thank you. You can follow me on Instagram at general_Njiniela. On Twitter, it's at general_Njini. The podcast handle, it's at GNPS_podcast. Yeah, I know we changed it, then I changed it back again. We're still growing, but we'll find a rhythm. We're sticking with GNPS_podcast, so that's final. Other than that, don't forget to click the subscribe button. It's somewhere in the corners. I don't know where, but it's going to be somewhere. It's been real. Peace out.
Yeah.